He was never supposed to fall in love with his boss. And she was never supposed to let him. Marcus Chen walked into Horizon Technologies on his first day as an intern with exactly 3 things: a cheap suit he had bought at a thrift store, a degree in computer engineering that had taken him 6 years to earn while working full-time, and a chip on his shoulder the size of Manhattan. At 25, he was older than most interns, and he was acutely aware that everyone around him had connections, family, money, or the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about where your next meal was coming from. Marcus had none of those things. What he had was desperation, the kind that makes you willing to work 16-hour days, to sleep on a friend's couch because you can't afford rent, to swallow every ounce of pride and start at the bottom of a company where people half your age were already climbing the ladder. And then he met Diana Morrison, and everything he thought he knew about his life, his future, and himself was thrown into chaos. Diana Morrison was not what Marcus expected from a CEO. At 47, she ran one of the most innovative technology companies on the East Coast with a reputation for being brilliant, demanding, and utterly uncompromising. She had built Horizon from nothing, starting in her garage 20 years ago with a loan she could barely afford and an idea everyone told her was crazy. Now she employed over 5,000 people and had a net worth that made Marcus's head spin when he looked it up. But the woman who stood in front of the interns on that first day wasn't the intimidating figure he had imagined. She was tall and elegant, with silver-streaked dark hair that she wore pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of someone who had learned to command respect through substance rather than volume. "I started where you're standing," she said, looking out at the group of nervous young people in their ill-fitting suits and borrowed confidence. 22 years ago, I was the intern making copies and fetching coffee. I was the one everyone dismissed, the one nobody expected anything from. And I want you to know something." She paused, and her eyes seemed to land on Marcus for just a moment. "The people who dismiss you are wrong. Every single one of you has the potential to change this company, this industry, this world. The only question is whether you have the courage to believe it." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. The internship was brutal. Marcus was assigned to the research and development department, working on projects that were years ahead of anything else in the industry. His supervisor was a stressed-out man named Henderson who seemed to view interns as a particularly annoying form of office furniture. The work was challenging, the hours were long, and Marcus quickly realized that most of his fellow interns would not survive the summer. But Marcus thrived. The same desperation that had driven him to finish his degree while working 2 jobs now drove him to be the first one in and the last one out. He asked questions that Henderson found annoying but secretly respected. He solved problems that were supposed to be above his pay grade. He made himself indispensable in a way that made people start to notice him. Including Diana Morrison. The first time she spoke to him directly was 6 weeks into the internship. Marcus was working late, as usual, trying to debug a piece of code that had been giving the team problems for days. He didn't notice the CEO approaching until her shadow fell across his desk. "Marcus Chen, right?" she said. He stood up so quickly he almost knocked over his coffee. "Ms. Morrison." "Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't see you." She waved off his stammering. "Henderson tells me you fixed the integration issue that's been holding up the Morrison project." Marcus felt his face warm. I saw a pattern that everyone else was missing. It wasn't that complicated once I—" "Don't do that," Diana interrupted, but her voice was gentle. "Don't minimize your accomplishments. Women in business have been trained to do that for decades, and it took me years to unlearn it. You did something impressive. Own it." Marcus stared at her, unsure how to respond. No one in his entire life had ever told him to own his accomplishments. Usually, people were too busy telling him to stay in his lane, to be grateful for whatever scraps he was given, to not get above himself. "Thank you," he finally said. "I will." Diana smiled then, a real smile that transformed her face from striking to beautiful. "Good. I'm looking forward to seeing what else you can do, Mr. Chen. She walked away, and Marcus stood there for a long moment, his heart pounding for reasons he didn't quite understand. The summer continued. Marcus kept working, kept impressing, kept catching Diana's attention in ways that made him both thrilled and terrified. She started stopping by his desk more often, asking his opinion on projects, including him in meetings that were far above his intern status. People noticed. There were whispers in the break room, sideways glances in the elevator. An older woman from accounting asked him pointedly how he had managed to get so much face time with the CEO. Marcus wanted to defend himself, to explain that it was his work, just his work, that had earned Diana's attention, but he also knew that no explanation would satisfy people who had already decided what they wanted to believe. And he couldn't explain the other thing. The thing that was growing between them like a vine through a crack in concrete, impossible to ignore, impossible to stop. It wasn't anything he could point to directly. It was just that when Diana looked at him, he felt seen in a way he had never experienced before. When she praised his work, he felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with professional validation. When their hands accidentally brushed during a meeting, the shock of it lingered on his skin for hours afterward. He was falling for her. His boss. A woman 22 years older than him. The CEO of a company where he was nothing more than an intern. It was impossible. It was inappropriate. It was the kind of thing that could destroy both of their careers. And yet he couldn't make himself stop. Diana, for her part, was fighting her own battle. She had noticed Marcus from the first day, not just his potential, which was obvious, but something more. An intensity in his eyes. A hunger that matched the hunger she remembered feeling at his age. She was too old for this, she told herself. Too established. Too experienced to be developing feelings for a 25-year-old intern. But the feelings developed anyway. Every conversation with Marcus reminded her why she had loved this industry in the first place, the excitement of discovery, the thrill of solving impossible problems, the joy of watching an idea become reality. He made her feel young again, not in a way that was about his age, but in a way that was about his energy, his passion, his refusal to accept limitations. She tried to stay professional. She reminded herself of all the reasons this was a terrible idea, the power imbalance, the optics, the gossip that would inevitably follow. She had worked too hard to build her reputation to throw it away on an intern, no matter how brilliant, how captivating, how absolutely magnetic that intern might be. But on the last night of the internship program, something changed. There was a rooftop party at the company headquarters, a celebration for the interns who had survived the summer and would be offered full-time positions. Marcus was among them. Henderson had already told him that he would be offered a position in R&D with a salary that would let him finally rent his own apartment. Marcus stood apart from the other interns, looking out at the city lights, thinking about how far he had come. A year ago, he had been sleeping on a couch, eating ramen, wondering if he would ever escape the cycle of poverty that had trapped his family for generations. Now he was standing on the roof of a building he would be working in full-time, with a future that actually looked like something worth having. You look like a man with a lot on his mind. He turned to find Diana standing beside him, a glass of champagne in her hand. She was wearing something different tonight, not her usual power suit but a simple black dress that made her look softer, more approachable. I was just thinking about how much things have changed, Marcus said. 3 months ago, I was terrified to walk through the front door of this building. Now it feels like home. Diana was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Of course. I've been watching you all summer, she said. Not just because of your work, though your work has been exceptional. But because you remind me of myself. That hunger. That refusal to accept that the world gets to decide your limits. She turned to look at him, and in the soft light of the rooftop, Marcus thought she had never looked more beautiful. I built this company because people told me I couldn't, Diana continued. Because they said a woman from nowhere, with nothing, had no business dreaming so big. And every time I look at you, I see someone fighting the same fight I fought. And I. She stopped. Looked away. You what? Marcus asked softly. Diana laughed, a hollow sound. I'm about to say something completely inappropriate, and I need you to understand that you are under no obligation to respond in any way. If this makes you uncomfortable, we can pretend this conversation never happened. I value your career and your future far too much to. Diana. Marcus stepped closer to her. Just tell me. She met his eyes. I have feelings for you. I've been trying to ignore them all summer, because they're completely inappropriate and I know how it looks and I know what people would say. But you're leaving tomorrow, starting your real job in a different department, and I realized that if I didn't tell you, if I let you walk away without knowing, I would regret it for the rest of my life. Marcus's heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. And what would you want me to do with that information? I don't know, Diana admitted. I genuinely don't know. I'm 47 years old, and for the first time in decades, I have no idea what the right move is. I just knew I had to tell you the truth. Marcus thought about all the reasons this was a bad idea. The power imbalance, the age difference, the gossip that would follow them both. He thought about his career, which was just beginning, and how easily it could be derailed by accusations of using Diana to get ahead. And then he thought about how he felt when she looked at him. How alive he felt in her presence. How the thought of walking away from her, of spending years working in the same building without being able to touch her, talk to her, love her, felt like a kind of death. I have feelings for you too, he said. I've been fighting them all summer, telling myself I was crazy, that someone like you could never want someone like me. But I do have them. And I don't want to walk away without seeing where this could go. Diana stared at him. Marcus, I'm 22 years older than you. I could be your mother. People will talk. They'll say you're only with me for money, for career advancement. They'll say I'm some kind of, she grimaced, cougar who preys on young men. I don't care what people say, Marcus said firmly. I've spent my entire life having people tell me what I can't do, what I shouldn't want, what I don't deserve. And I'm done listening. You're the most incredible person I've ever met. You're brilliant and beautiful and you make me want to be better than I am. Age is just a number. It's not, though, Diana said quietly. When you're 47, I'll be almost 70. I might have health problems. I might. And when I'm 47, I might be hit by a bus tomorrow, Marcus interrupted. No one knows what the future holds. But I know how I feel right now. And I know that walking away from you would be the biggest mistake of my life. Diana was quiet for a long moment. The sounds of the party drifted up to them, laughter, music, the clink of glasses, but they might as well have been on another planet. We'd have to be careful, Diana finally said. You're starting a real job here. There would need to be clear boundaries between our personal and professional lives. HR would need to be informed. We'd need to make sure no one could ever accuse either of us of impropriety. I understand, Marcus said. And we'd need to take things slowly. Very slowly. I haven't done this in a long time. I've been alone for years, focused on the company. I don't know if I even remember how to be in a relationship. We'll figure it out together, Marcus said. Slowly. Carefully. One day at a time. Diana looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took his hand. Okay, she said. Let's try. What followed was the most challenging and rewarding period of both their lives. They did take things slowly, meeting for dinner in out-of-the-way restaurants, talking for hours about everything and nothing. They told HR about their relationship and created clear protocols to prevent any accusations of favoritism. Marcus was moved to a department where Diana had no direct oversight, and they agreed never to discuss work outside the office unless absolutely necessary. The gossip came, as Diana had predicted. There were whispers about the young programmer who was dating the CEO, speculation about motives and power dynamics and whether the whole thing was appropriate. Marcus's colleagues treated him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. But Marcus weathered it, as he had weathered everything else in his life. He focused on his work, proving day after day that his success had nothing to do with who he was dating. He let his code speak for itself. And gradually, the whispers died down, replaced by grudging respect. Diana faced her own challenges. Board members expressed concern. A business magazine ran an article questioning her judgment. Old rivals used the relationship to suggest that she was losing her edge, becoming soft, distracted by personal matters. But Diana had built Horizon from nothing by refusing to let other people's opinions dictate her choices. She wasn't about to start now. She was in love, really, truly in love for the first time in years, and she was not going to apologize for it. 1 year into their relationship, they went public. A carefully coordinated announcement, designed to get ahead of any potential scandal. Diana gave an interview to a major business publication, speaking candidly about finding love later in life with a younger partner. "People want to put relationships in boxes," she said. "They want to tell us who we're allowed to love based on age, on status, on 1,000 different factors that have nothing to do with actual compatibility. But love doesn't work that way. Marcus is my partner in every sense. He challenges me, supports me, makes me laugh, and makes me want to be a better person. That's what matters. Not how old either of us is." The response was mixed, as expected. But the positive reactions outweighed the negative ones, and over time, Diana and Marcus became something of an icon for unconventional love. They received letters from young men who were in love with older women and afraid to pursue them. From older women who had given up on finding love and were now reconsidering. From anyone who had ever felt like their heart wasn't following the rules it was supposed to follow. 3 years later, Marcus proposed. He took Diana back to the rooftop where they had first admitted their feelings, surrounded by the city lights that had witnessed the beginning of everything. "I don't have much to offer you," he said, kneeling before her. "No family money, no fancy pedigree. Just a guy from nowhere who got lucky enough to meet the most extraordinary woman in the world. But I promise you this, I will spend every day of the rest of my life trying to make you as happy as you've made me. I will work hard and love you fiercely and never, ever take you for granted." He held up the ring, modest but elegant, chosen with care. "Diana Morrison, will you marry me?" Diana looked at this man who had come into her life so unexpectedly and changed everything. This young man who had never made her feel old, only alive. This partner who had stood beside her through whispers and skepticism and proved, every single day, that their love was real. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes. They were married on the rooftop of Horizon Technologies, surrounded by employees and friends and the city that had watched their love story unfold. The ceremony was simple but beautiful, a reflection of the relationship itself, built not on flash or status but on genuine connection and mutual respect. Today, Marcus is 30 and Diana is 52. He has risen through the ranks at Horizon, not because of his relationship with the CEO, but because of his undeniable talent. Diana has stepped back slightly from day-to-day operations, focusing more on mentorship and philanthropy. Together, they've created a foundation that supports young people from disadvantaged backgrounds who are pursuing careers in technology, people like Marcus used to be, hungry and talented and just waiting for someone to give them a chance. Their love story continues to inspire people who encounter it. Not because it's unusual, though it is. But because it proves something that many people have forgotten, that love doesn't follow rules. That the heart wants what it wants. And that sometimes, the most unlikely connections turn out to be the most profound. If you've been told that the person you love is wrong for you, too old, too young, too different, I hope this story gives you permission to trust your own heart. And if you're still searching for your person, I hope it reminds you that love can show up when and where you least expect it. Leave a comment telling me what you think about Diana and Marcus's story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the rules about who you're supposed to love were written by people who don't know your heart. Only you can write your own love story.